Welcome to Eternal Dread, where fear never sleeps. Tell us where you're watching from, and what time it is, because terror has no limits. If you're brave enough, share and comment, but beware, something might be watching you too. Now, turn off the lights, and let the dread begin. I've been a trucker for years, long enough to hear every tall tale there is about seeing something crazy on the road. Every trucker has one, and you tire of hearing them pretty damn fast. You're hunched in a grease-stained diner, just trying to choke down a diesel-tasting coffee before slinking back onto the highway. But some grizzled long-haul vet on the next stool over is talking your ear off about the time he saw a UFO, or picked up a hitchhiker he couldn't see in his rear view. It's exhausting. The voices change, the faces blur together, but the stories stay the same. Only now, it's my mug spitting out an outlandish tale to anyone who'll listen. And I don't like it, because I'm not spinning some crazed yarn in hopes of spooking the fresh-faced truckers. I'm giving them a cold, plain warning. Because these things, they're out there, and they might be coming to you. It was one of those nights so dark you'd forget there was ever any light in the world. No stars, just black, rolling clouds smothering the sky. My headlights were an island of light in the infinite black. The white lines on the road rippled past in a hypnotic flow. I'd driven this stretch of road before and dreaded every minute of it. There was nothing but long grass on either side, rolling outwards in endless tufts. No landmarks, nothing interesting. Just the kind of mindless, featureless terrain that has you tasting the solitude. About the only noteworthy thing was that out there, something spooky happens to anything electrical. The old guys call it dropout. Your radio dies down to a numbing crackle. Your headlights shrink into narrow little bands. I heard explanations ranging from some weird mineral in the ground to an alien spaceship sapping away your voltage from up above. But all that mattered was it was real. It was annoying. Because of the dropout, I barely saw the pickup. My headlights were so dim they barely caught in the glass. Was that a windshield? I hit my exhaust brake and snapped on my high beams as the rig rumbled to a halt. In what little light they could manage, I saw the white body of a pickup truck slumped on the shoulder, driver's door hanging open. I rolled in behind it, tires churning up gravel, and killed the engine. Hopping out, I craned my neck in all directions. Nobody. The truck was roadside repair setup. It had a winch in the back, and a brushed steel side bin brimmed with tools, chains, and cables. There was a cartoon detail slapped on the door. Tony's Roadside Repairs. Cute, but where was Tony? I placed a hand on the hood. Cold. Hadn't run for hours. Leaning into the cab, I saw the keys dangling from the ignition, turned a quarter. The radio spewed out a steady stream of quiet, meandering static. Maybe you want to take a leak. Hello? Nothing. All I could see around me was grass tumbling in the wind, rolling outwards in waves before giving way to darkness. I've got a job to do, I told myself, as I climbed back in and peeled onto the road, my hands pinching the wheel in a vice grip. This haul won't drive itself in, I thought, as the white lines started whipping by, and guilt brewed up in my stomach. I drove a short distance before reaching the tunnel. It was old school, a jagged mouth punched through the mountain with dynamite God knows how many decades ago. It yawned open, and once inside, the world shrank. The only light came from a handful of buzzing sodium lamps, caged in rusted wire and bleeding sickly orange down the cut stone walls. Maybe 3 of them still worked. The rest were dead, leaving whole stretches of the tunnel buried in thick, impenetrable dark. I plowed into the darkness, feeling like I was driving a submarine, like there was no world out there, just me and the truck. Then, somewhere in the middle, something pierced the black. 2 amber lights, blinking softly in and out. Hazard lights? Somebody broken down? That explained where Tony ended up. I tried my high beams again, but they flickered in and out, before settling on a weak glow. Damn it! I pulled it over to the tunnel's side, my mirror almost touching the rock, and dug around for my flashlight. As I opened the door, the humid air draped around me like a blanket. Cold, but rich with some ungodly odor. Not quite rot, not quite mildew. It smelled almost like the ocean. Not surprisingly, my flashlight was on the blink, leaving me with a dull, flickering beam to fight the darkness. I cast it as far ahead as I could as I tried to make out the car. Hello? Anybody there? My voice bounced down the tunnel, meeting no response. But there was something shuffling around up ahead. A dark silhouette by the lights. The torch beam was too weak to make out any details, but there was something there all right, someone. As I clattered onwards, the silhouette took on a shape. A man. He was waving, hinging his arm back and forth. There was something strange about the motion. It was slow, lethargic. Up, down, like a puppet. "You okay there?" As my voice reached him, he started shuffling, like something was dragging him back. He stiffly collapsed into his driver's seat. I kept going, the hazard lights drawing me onwards. Blink, blink, blink. As the dull torchlight spilled along the car's silver body, I noticed it was odd. I know cars. I spend half my life staring at their taillights, cursing them under my breath. I can name makes and models by the shape alone. But this? It was nothing. Not a Toyota, a Kia, or a Chevy, just car. The kind of thing a kid would draw come to life. The hazard lights pulsed intensely, rippling in a fit against the dark. I looked back at my thready headlights, shook the flashlight, and watched the beam cut in and out. How come this guy's not hurting for volts? I was close enough now to really look at the bodywork. It wasn't metal. The torchlight splattered beneath its surface, filtering red, unveiling a twisted network of fibers, veins coursing through the panels. And the whole thing was moving, undulating gently in and out. Beathing. My feet froze to the ground. I panned the flashlight over the driver's side window. The body in the driver's seat was pale, paper white. Clouded eyes bulging from their sockets, mouth hanging agape. On his shoulder, a round white patch was sewn onto the jumpsuit. Tony's roadside repairs. A dull, amber light began to leak from his open mouth. I should have ran. I was too late. Something long spewed from the body of the car, tearing and whipping through the damp air. I was yanked off the ground before I knew what was happening, an immense pressure crushing my ankles together, grinding bone against bone. It had me. I clawed at the tarmac as I was dragged back, losing fingernails but desperately trying to fight the pull. I kicked, I thrashed, I screamed. I twisted my body until the boots were wrenched clean off my feet. The tentacle flung them into the darkness and flailed in anger. Whup, whup, whup. I didn't waste a second. I bolted away with a speed I didn't know I had, body electric with fear. I ripped open the door of my truck and threw it into reverse. Stomping the accelerator through the floor mat, I watched the dials spike into the red. The engine shuddered to the point of stalling, wanting to die right there, but I willed it to go on. Out there, the car was coming after me. Not driving but walking, scuttling on a tangle of segmented legs sprouting from its undercarriage. The headlights pushed out of the body on stalks, pulsing with furious yellow light. I couldn't even watch it chase me. My eyes darted between my mirrors. I could barely make out the white flanks of my trailer, but I had to. I frantically steered and countersteered, keeping it in line. If I jackknifed in the tunnel, I was dead. But then my mirrors caught them, more lights. Amber. Flashing. Another figure chiseled out of the darkness, drunkenly waving its arm. This time I really saw it. He was little more than a skeleton. Long, desiccated hair plunged from a yellowed skull. The tatters of a denim jacket and what looked like bell-bottoms hung from the bones. I saw that the bones were lashed together by a network of little tentacles, their tips gently glowing, blinking in amber. From the neck, the tentacles braided together into a thick, glistening appendage, feeding back into the car. Angler fish. Poor fellow was the lure. This car was old. Big round headlights. Wood panels. Rear fins. It was from back when cars used to have edges. My trailer clipped its cadaverous lure as I shot past, shattering bone into puffs of powder. A shriek, wet and angry, rattled through the tunnel. It yanked its broken lure inside itself and spat out a crazed, thrashing tentacle. It seized my mirror, tearing it from the cab and tossing it into the void, but I was clear. I kept reversing. The truck was screaming at me. Warning lights I'd never seen before erupted on my dash in an expensive rainbow. The engine shuddered so hard I thought it would leap out of the hood. But I kept going until the rock of the tunnel peeled away and the black night sky rolled above my head. Then I stopped. The tunnel mouth yawned. Within its shadow, amber lights flickered. 10, 12, 15, I wasn't sure. How many of those things are in there? Needless to say, I skipped the tunnel. I backtracked until I had the weakest bar of signal and called the cops, then spent the rest of that night with my eyes glued to the windshield. My head dipped once or twice, but I wouldn't let myself sleep. The bright steel morning singed my eyes by the time the patrol car trundled in next to me, the cop tapping my window, lukewarm coffee in hand. They knew about Tony the mechanic. He was reported missing the previous night. They went in, scoured the tunnel with their spotlights, but found nothing. That didn't surprise me, they acted funny. Sure, they tried to look taken aback by my story, but every raised eyebrow was well practiced, every, your mind plays tricks on you in the dark, "And you sure you weren't drinking?" rehearsed to AT. They know what's in that tunnel. Dealing with cases like me, like Tony, that's just Tuesday morning. So, all I can do to help anyone is warn them. If you see a broken down car on the side of the road, hazard lights blinking away in the dark, you might feel like stopping. Like being the good Samaritan, ever eager to help change a tire or lend out your jumper cables. But these creatures evolved to feed on that very kindness. And they're hungry, very hungry. Do not stop. So, I don't know why this memory has just come up, but I've been thinking about my childhood. These last few days, I woke up drenched in sweat, and even though at first I couldn't say why, I think I'm finally ready to face my past. I don't know how old I was when this happened. 8, maybe 9? Back then, my family had just moved into a small house in the suburbs. My parents weren't rich, but we definitely lived comfortably, and I never saw them worry about money, which by today's standards. I digress. I still remember some parts of that house vividly. My own room, up on the second floor. A mailbox, white and red. My dad's garage, where he kept the car and his motorcycle. The white picket fence with the small gate. My mom's rose bushes, and the trellis that had convinced her to choose that house right at the first moment she had laid eyes upon it. You know what that is, right? That strange wooden framework that lets plants climb up the facade of your house. My mom loved the idea, and when I talked with her a few days ago, she brought it up again, which I think made me remember as well. It all started about a year after we moved in. Late at night, hours past my bedtime, I was still up in my room, reading and playing. I couldn't tell you for the life of me what I was reading or what kept me awake, but I think I can remember quite a few instances of myself enjoying the night and the calmness after everyone else had gone to sleep back then. It was kind of my thing, you could say. Whatever. I remember hearing those footsteps outside while still playing with my toys, and somehow, something about them drew my attention. Maybe it was because it was already late at night, or maybe they stood out because the neighborhood wasn't even lively during the day, much less after the sun had gone down. Or was it because they weren't normal footsteps, not the sounds of someone walking down the street, but rather of a person dancing? It disturbs me to this day. I put down my toys and went to the window to take a look at what was happening. We had 3 street lamps along the road running past my parents' house, and just between the one on the right and the one almost in front of the property, I could see him. A guy, dressed in what I would describe as a gaudy outfit, complete with a top hat on his head, was slowly coming down the street. I don't know what kind of dance he imitated, but it had to be one of those ballroom ones, I think. He was twirling around, had his arms raised as if he had a partner, and kept to this strange rhythm all along. I was kinda intrigued, to be honest. It looked funny and non-threatening, at least, until the man suddenly stopped. It was like he had frozen mid-dance, had his head turned to the side while he was balancing on one foot. Yeah, I think that was the first time in my life I felt uneasy. Something was wrong about that man, I remember thinking. Then I froze as the strange man leisurely turned his head, then his shoulders, then slowly whirled around on his one foot. He looked up at me, not just at the house, but at me. I felt it back then, and I can still remember it so vividly, this feeling of eyes staring right into my soul. I watched helplessly as the man raised his hand and started waving. It might sound like a nice gesture, but believe me, I whimpered when I saw it. His face was covered by the shadow of the brim of his head, and yet I could still feel it, that he wasn't smiling. I pushed myself away from the window, jumped into my bed, and pulled the blanket quickly over my head. A very childish reaction, right? I mean, I was a child, scared and afraid because I still thought Mom or Dad might punish me if they found out I had stayed up past bedtime again. So I tried to resolve this mess on my own. Honestly, I should have screamed my head off then and there, but I didn't. I kept cowering beneath the blanket, listening for the noise of the man returning to his normal dance routine. But that didn't happen either. All I could hear was the beating of my own heart, right up in my ears. I was crying while I held the blanket over my head and prayed silently for the man to just disappear. Why didn't the footsteps start up again? I asked myself. How had he noticed me up here, standing silently in my dark room? My heart was beating so fast I thought it would break my ribs, and then the one noise I dreaded more than anything reached my ears. The gate to our lawn swung open. I was shaking in my bed. This strange man was coming, my mind told me. Coming for me. I kept listening, but couldn't even hear his footsteps. My heart was still racing, drowning out the sound of my own thoughts. What if he rang the doorbell? Would someone open the door for him? I felt myself whimpering again, then clasped one hand over my mouth to stop any noise from coming out. Maybe the man didn't know where I was, I told myself. As long as I stayed extra quiet, he might just turn around and leave again. Looking back now, I really was completely out of my mind from fright. I could feel my lungs starting to burn with the hand still clasped tightly over my mouth. The only sound I could hear was my heartbeat. No one was ringing the doorbell. No one was walking around outside. I started letting out air again and tried to keep my breath shallow and silent, but failed miserably. Something about that sight had shaken me to my core. But now, there was no noise coming from the man anymore. Seconds passed that felt like an eternity. Then minutes. Slowly, my heartbeat sank and my breathing returned to normal. I was still cowering beneath my blanket, still shaking like a leaf while my pajamas were drenched in sweat, but nothing happened outside anymore. To keep myself from completely spiraling, I started to count my breaths. First to 100, then 2, then 3. Nothing happened. The night outside my window was calm and almost silent. There were no scratching noises, no footsteps, nor anything like that. I began wondering if I had just imagined the sound of the gate before. After a few more minutes, I even felt my muscles relaxing a bit. The blanket wasn't shaking anymore as my own tremors slowed, then stopped. Had I just imagined it all? In my childish mind, that really did seem possible. I wasn't sure if the man had existed at all, if I even had been awake before. Maybe it all was just a bad dream, I told myself. Slowly, I lowered the blanket. Just a bit, at first. Enough to take a look at the window. The night outside was as dark and calm as before. I kept staring at it, waiting for something to happen, but nothing did. My chest was still hurting, and my lungs seemed strained, but I soon began to feel at least a little bit more at ease. Pushing the blanket to my feet, I ever so slowly started to move. First, I only put one foot out of bed, looked at the window and found it still the same as before. Then the other leg. All the while I was listening for any noise or sound from outside. But nothing was going on out there, so I stood up from the bed. Was it just bravado? An urge to prove to myself that I wasn't a scared little child? No. The thing that drove me on the most was that I knew I wouldn't be able to fall asleep if I didn't look outside at least once. All those nightmares would keep me awake, I knew. So I ducked down and started to sneak toward the window. Always on the watch for anything happening outside, I slowly crept forward. Even though I tried to tell myself that it had all been nothing but a dream, part of me still warned me not to be careless. I remember those moments so well. The smell of my room, the toys lying on the floor, making me step around them to keep the noise to a minimum. The sight of the moon, full and bright, up in the sky between the stars. My hands were shaking slightly, and I could feel my heart rate picking up once more. The top of the street lamp came into view. I crept forward, past the small desk and the chair. The fence of our neighbor's lawn was calm and closed, and looked just like the one here. I started to grow hopeful. It had all been just a dream. Another step, and I was only one more away from the window. The night was calm, yet I could still feel this strange tension. I swallowed my fear, took one more breath, then pushed myself forward. Down there, by the street lamp, was the gate in the white picket fence. It stood open. I could feel my heart almost jumping out of my chest. Sweat was running down my cheeks. In the light of the lamp, I could see something more. Footsteps in the wet grass, leading straight across the lawn, toward the house. Toward the trellis. My mind seemed to crumble. I couldn't move my body anymore. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. The shadowy shape of a gaudy suit blowing in the soft breeze, right next to my window. A face, half covered in darkness. Eyes that looked down at me through the pane, staring right into my soul. He was grinning. I felt it more than I saw it. Grinning while staring at me. His face came closer to the window, and I stood there like a deer in headlights. I couldn't even scream, so scared was I. The sound of him, smacking his lips, has been engraved in my mind. I don't know what he planned or even wanted. All I can remember now is the noise the struts of the trellis gave off as the man shifted forward and tried to grab hold of my window's frame. This low, moaning noise just before they broke. He let out a scream, and with it, I cried out as well, shouting for my mom and dad as the man fell down and howled in anger. Lights turned on all around the street as I ran away from the window and headed toward my parents' bedroom. I don't really remember what happened next, only that my dad removed every last piece of the trellis the following day, and my mom stayed with me wherever I went from then on for what felt like a year. I slept in my parents' room for the next few months, and soon after, we moved again. Somehow, I must have buried this whole episode somewhere deep in my mind. It only came up again when Mom talked about the trellis she used to have and the great plans she had for it, but never could turn into reality. Dad has already passed away, and I have my own family and children now to take care of. We live in a small, calm suburb with nice and inexpensive schools close by. Only, yesterday, I woke up during the night. I remember it because that normally never happens. As I was lying there next to my partner, I heard it. The sound of footsteps dancing along the street. My daughter is 7. She's got the room next to us on the 2nd floor. I think we need to move. I always thought urban legends were just that, stories to scare us and make us lose sleep for no reason. As a biology student, I got used to looking for rational explanations for everything, even when something made me uneasy. But what happened to my friends and me that semester is still the only thing I haven't been able to explain. It all started one Friday afternoon, after a field practice. We had gathered in the faculty cafeteria to rest before heading home. Miguel, as usual, brought up a strange topic. "Have you ever heard of the night call syndrome?" he asked, absent-mindedly stirring his coffee. Laura snorted, skeptical. "Let me guess. A creepypasta?" "Kind of," Miguel said with a smile. "They say some people get a call at 3:33 a.m. The number doesn't show up on the screen, just unknown. If you answer, at first you just hear noise, like someone breathing on the other side. But if you stay on the line long enough, you hear your own voice." A chill ran down my spine. Alejandra, who had been distracted with her phone until that moment, looked up. "And what's that voice supposed to say?" she asked. Miguel put his cup down and leaned toward us. "They say it tells you the exact time you're going to die." Daniel burst out laughing. "How convenient. A death call that only happens at 3:33. Why not at 4:44 or something more dramatic?" We laughed because that made sense. It was an absurd story, something told to make us uneasy, but nothing more. "Come on, genetics class is about to start, and I don't want Camillo to give us that hawk stare for walking in late," I said, annoyed. "Hurry up, I can't miss genetics." "I refuse to see that class with that guy again," Miguel said, half worried, half annoyed. We really hated the genetics class. It wasn't the subject itself, it was Camillo. He was the professor in charge, and he didn't make things easy or comfortable for us. We grabbed our things and headed to class, hoping to understand at least something of what that teacher said. In the following days, the conversation about the night call was forgotten. We had exams coming up, lab practices, and an ecology report that was driving us crazy. But then, 5 nights after that conversation, something happened. It was almost 4 in the morning when my phone vibrated on the nightstand. I woke up startled and, still groggy, squinted at the screen. It was a message from Alejandra. "Are you awake?" I frowned. It wasn't unusual for Alejandra to stay up late, but she never texted me at this hour. I replied with a simple, "What's up?" Almost immediately, the 3 dots appeared, indicating she was typing. They called me. I felt a void in my stomach. "Who?" I typed with trembling fingers. "I don't know." No number showed up. It just said unknown. I stared at the screen, waiting for more, but Alejandra stopped typing. The silence of the night became heavy, like the room had shrunk around me. "Did you answer?" I finally wrote. A few eternal seconds passed before her response came. "Yes." The air caught in my throat. "And what did you hear?" The 3 dots appeared again, but this time they took longer. When her response finally arrived, it gave me chills. My voice. It said my name, and then it told me an exact time. My heart started pounding. I sat up abruptly, turned on the light, and dialed her number. It rang 3 times before she answered. "Ale, tell me this is a joke," I whispered. There was a brief silence before she spoke. She sounded scared. "I'm not joking. They told me a date and time, Thursday at 3:33 a.m., and it was my voice, my own voice." My skin crawled. Thursday was only 2 days away. I stayed silent, the phone pressed to my ear. I wanted to say something, anything that would calm Alejandra, but I couldn't find the words. Her breathing was shallow, as if she was on the verge of a panic attack. "Ale, this has to be a joke," I finally said, trying to sound firm. "That's what I thought." Her voice trembled. "I want to think someone's messing with me, but..." I felt something. It wasn't just a call, it wasn't static noise. It was my voice, and it sounded so sure when it said the time. I ran a hand over my face, trying to shake off the numbness of the early morning. "It has to be Miguel," I blurted. "He was the one who told us that story. He's probably messing with us." Alejandra took a moment to respond. Yeah, I guess so, she said, but she didn't sound convinced. Think about it, I insisted. In all those stories, there's a trigger, something people do to activate the curse or whatever. In creepypastas, there's always a ritual, a cursed website, a mirror at midnight, touching a forbidden object, selling your soul to the devil, something. But we didn't do anything. A silence settled over the line. Right? I asked, suddenly unsure. Alejandra didn't respond immediately. I shuddered. For a moment, I imagined both of us mentally reviewing the past few days, trying to find a moment where we'd done something out of the ordinary, something that could have triggered this. But there was nothing. At least, nothing we remembered. We need to talk to Miguel, I said finally. If this is a joke, he'll confess. Yeah, Alejandra whispered. Try to sleep, okay? We'll clear this up tomorrow. Well, later, when we meet at university. I don't think I can. I didn't know how to respond. We stayed on the line a few more seconds before finally hanging up. I lay back down, staring at the ceiling. I tried to convince myself it was all nonsense, but the skin on my arms was still crawling. I couldn't stop thinking about the time. Thursday, 3:33 a.m. It was stupid, but I couldn't help but check my phone screen. 3:57 a.m. I swallowed and turned off the light. That night, I couldn't sleep, drifting into what seemed like deep sleep, only to wake up suddenly. I checked my phone again. 4:38 a.m. I'd be wasting my time if I tried to sleep. I had to leave now if I wanted to make it to the 7 a.m. class. I'd have to try to sleep a little on the bus. That morning, we showed up with the faces of the sleepless. Alejandra looked pale, with furrowed brows, but didn't say anything when she saw me. We just walked together to the faculty in silence. We found Miguel in the courtyard, laughing with Daniel and Laura. Like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just played a sick prank on us. I crossed my arms and stood in front of him. Very funny, Miguel, I said without even greeting him. He looked up, confused. Huh, good morning, how are you? I'm good, thanks for asking, he said in an ironic and playful tone. Alejandra didn't say anything. She just stayed a few steps behind me, lips tight. The call, I said. You can stop the show now. Miguel blinked. What call? I frowned. Come on, don't play dumb. The 3:33 call. The creepypasta you told us. Alejandra got it last night. Laura and Daniel exchanged glances. Miguel, on the other hand, stood still. What? His tone didn't sound like fake surprise. I didn't like that. If this is a joke, you can stop now. Because it's not funny, I warned. I'm not joking, he said quietly. I have no idea what you're talking about. My stomach twisted. Alejandra tensed beside me. What do you mean, no idea? You told us the story, Alejandra whispered. Yeah, but... Miguel scratched his neck, uneasy. I just heard it from a cousin. I never said it was real. An uncomfortable silence settled between us. Okay, calm down, Daniel said, raising his hands. If Miguel didn't do it, then someone's messing with you. Couldn't it just be some random guy with too much free time? How can it be random if the voice I heard was mine? Alejandra snapped. We all fell silent. Miguel rubbed his hands together nervously. Look, if this is real, he said quietly. The story I heard said something else. Alejandra and I looked at him tense. If you get the call and answer, there's no way to avoid it. The air seemed to thicken. That's stupid, I said, trying to laugh, but my voice sounded hollow. That's what the story said, Miguel insisted, looking at us seriously. And there's more. We waited. If Alejandra answered, she won't be the only one to get the call. A chill ran down my spine. I slowly turned to Alejandra, but she was already looking at me wide-eyed. Daniel broke the silence with a nervous laugh. Well, then it's easy. No one answers calls from unknown. And that's it. And if you don't have a choice? Alejandra asked in a whisper. I didn't understand what she meant until my phone vibrated in my pocket. I felt a cold jolt in my chest. I pulled the phone out with trembling fingers. On the screen, there was no number. Just one word. Unknown. The phone kept vibrating in my hand. Fear gripped my chest, freezing my fingers. Don't answer, Alejandra whispered, wide-eyed. Laura and Daniel looked at us, frowning, waiting for me to do something. Miguel, however, looked too serious, as if he already knew what was going to happen. I swallowed. It was just a call. Nothing more. If I didn't answer, I'd just be feeding the irrational fear that Miguel had planted with his stupid story. I had to show Alejandra nothing was going to happen. But my hands trembled. The buzzing of the phone seemed to reverberate in my bones. Don't do it, Alejandra insisted, grabbing my arm. I swallowed, and I answered. Hello. Nothing. White noise. A soft, intermittent sound, like someone breathing on the other side of the line. A chill ran down my spine. I looked at my friends, wide-eyed. Miguel watched me, tense, as if waiting for the worst. Laura and Daniel stared at me, holding their breath. Alejandra shook her head, terrified. I wanted to hang up too. I needed to. I moved my finger toward the screen. And then, a familiar voice broke the silence. Hello, sweetheart. I felt deflated. It was my mom. I put a hand to my chest, releasing the air I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Mom. My voice came out shaky. What's going on? Nothing, honey. You left your phone on the table, and I noticed when I got to the office. I'm calling you from here. Everything okay? I couldn't believe it. I turned to Alejandra and the others with a trembling smile. I sighed, feeling ridiculous for being so scared. Yes, Mom. I'm fine. Thank you. Well, see you at home. Don't forget to buy what I asked for. Yeah, okay. I hung up and let my arm drop, suddenly feeling exhausted. I turned to my friends. It was my mom. Alejandra's shoulders slumped. Daniel and Laura exchanged glances and laughed in relief. I knew it, Daniel said, shaking his head. We're overthinking this. Alejandra still looked tense, but she let out a sigh. God, I swear I thought that. That what? I interrupted, smiling. That a curse fell on us just because Miguel told us an internet story. Alejandra didn't answer. Miguel, however, was still staring at me, frowning. What's going on? I asked. He took a while to respond. Did your mom call you from her office? Yeah, why? Miguel squinted. Then why did it say unknown on the screen? The relief evaporated in my chest. I froze. What? I looked at the phone screen. The call wasn't in the history. The fear hit me again, hard. Alejandra put a hand over her mouth. Daniel and Laura stopped smiling. I felt like I couldn't breathe, because the last thing my mom said before hanging up was that I had forgotten my phone at home. But it was in my hand. The silence grew thick. No one spoke. I looked at my phone screen, my fingers stiff around it. It wasn't in the call history. There was no record of me answering. And my mom's voice. I swallowed. I heard her. I'm sure she said I left the phone at home. Alejandra shifted uncomfortably beside me, crossing her arms over her chest. But, you have it in your hand. My stomach churned. Maybe you just misunderstood, Daniel interjected with his logical tone, as if he were explaining a simple math problem. You said you were nervous, and you were. Your mom probably said she left the phone on the table. That she left it at home, not your phone. I stared at him. You think I imagined it? I'm not saying you imagined it, just that you interpreted it wrong. It's normal. Daniel waved his hand. The brain tends to fill in information when it's in an anxious state. Sometimes we hear what we're afraid to hear. Alejandra nodded slowly, as if trying to convince herself he was right. Laura, on the other hand, still had her lips pursed. But the call history, she murmured. That is strange, Daniel admitted. But there are logical explanations. It could have been a glitch, or the number was hidden. There are apps that allow that. And the white noise. Alejandra interrupted. Daniel shrugged. Bad signal. My point is, if your mom called, that's the important part. All the rest are details that were exaggerated because we were scared. I crossed my arms. I wanted to believe him. I wanted him to be right. But something in my stomach wouldn't let go. Miguel, who had been quiet up until now, rubbed his chin. Maybe it's just that, or maybe it's already started. Alejandra shot him a sharp look. Miguel! He shrugged with a half-smile, but didn't seem as relaxed as he tried to appear. I'm just saying. Daniel scoffed. Stop saying nonsense. I looked at my phone again, my heart pounding. Maybe Daniel was right. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But then, it vibrated again in my hand. Unknown number. I ignored the call. I didn't even say anything to the others. I just blocked the screen, put my phone in my bag, and pretended nothing had happened. That everything was fine. I had a physiology exam to do. I couldn't lose my mind now. But as soon as I sat in the classroom and saw the paper in front of me, I knew I couldn't concentrate. The questions were there, waiting for answers I would have known by heart at another time. Why does a boa's heart rate and ventilation decrease after hunting? What are the implications for its metabolism? I had no idea, because my mind wasn't here. I could only think about the call, about the word unknown glowing on my screen, about the possibility that at this very moment, my phone was vibrating inside my bag. I tried to focus. I took a breath. I answered a few things with whatever my brain could piece together. But when time was up and they collected the papers, I knew my result would be disastrous. We left in silence. Alejandra walked beside me with a frown, but didn't say anything. Maybe she hadn't done well either. When we reached the cafeteria, hunger hit all of us at the same time. A black hole in our stomachs. We had an hour before the lab, and if we didn't eat now, we wouldn't eat later. We ordered food, sat at our usual table, and for a moment, the world felt normal again. Until I took out my phone and saw the 5 missed calls, all from the same unknown number. I didn't eat. While the others devoured their meals, I was completely absorbed in the screen of my phone. I needed to find the story. I searched by keywords: mysterious call, unknown number, phone creepypasta, cursed night call at 3:33 a.m. Click after click, I entered forums, horror story websites, blogs with strange fonts and dark backgrounds. I read story after story, but none matched exactly what Miguel had told us that day. Something told me that if I understood the story well, if I found its origin, we could do something to get away from it, to prevent it from becoming our reality. Everything around me became a distant murmur, background noise without importance, until a hand appeared out of nowhere and snatched the phone from me. I blinked, surprised. Daniel was looking at me with a mix of pity and understanding. "Seriously?" he said, holding the phone as if he had just caught me in the middle of a madness. I didn't respond. Daniel sighed, swiped his finger across the screen, and saw the page I was on. His eyes hardened for a moment before turning to Miguel. "You need to tell us exactly where you found that story." "I already told you, my cousin told me," Miguel replied. "Then message him and ask where he got it from," Daniel insisted. "We need to read the full version. She's going to go crazy if she doesn't know the whole thing. Look at her. She hasn't eaten a bite, and it's her favorite food." Miguel frowned, but took out his phone and started typing. I took advantage of the pause to let out what had been gnawing at me inside. "I received more calls," I said quietly. Alejandra lifted her head sharply. Laura dropped her spoon. "What?" Alejandra asked. "During the exam," I murmured. "Several times." Daniel squinted. "Probably it was your mom again, from her office." I shook my head. "No. She knew I had the exam at that time. She wouldn't call me then." Daniel didn't seem convinced. Maybe there was an emergency. His logic was overwhelming, but something in my stomach told me no. Still, if I wanted peace of mind, there was a way to confirm it. I took my phone from his hand and searched the contact list. "What are you doing?" Laura asked. "I'm going to call my mom, but to her cell, not the unknown number. If my mom really had forgotten her phone at home, then she wouldn't answer. And that would mean that the calls from the unknown number had been made by her from her office. And that all of this had nothing to do with Miguel's creepypasta." I swallowed and pressed call. The ringtone rang once, then again, and then someone answered. "Mom?" I asked immediately. Silence. I frowned. The line didn't sound normal. It wasn't white noise nor interference. It was like someone was breathing very, very softly. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice coming out more tense than I intended. "Nothing. Why do you have my mom's phone?" I insisted. More breathing. Something creaked in the background. "Answer me." Then the voice changed. It was no longer the static whisper of a stranger. It was my voice, or something that sounded exactly like my voice. Tuesday, 1:04 p.m. It wasn't said with aggression or drama. It was just spoken, as if it were an absolute truth. A chill ran down my spine. What does that mean?" But there was no answer. Just the dry sound of the call ending. I was left with the phone stuck to my ear, paralyzed. "What happened?" Laura asked urgently. I didn't respond. With trembling fingers, I called my mom's number again. This time, the operator answered coldly. "The number you have dialed is turned off or out of coverage." No. My friends stared at me in complete silence. I could barely breathe. I decided to do the only thing I could, call the unknown number that had been calling me during the exam. It rang twice. "Hello," a woman's voice answered. It wasn't my mom. It was an unknown woman, who let out a small laugh before speaking. "Oh, sorry. Your mom is on her lunch break. That's why she's not in the office. But if you want, I can leave her a message. Or I can tell her to call you when she gets back." The knot in my stomach tightened. "No, it's not necessary. Just tell her we'll see her at home." "Okay, I'll let her know." I hung up. My hands were trembling. I could feel the weight of all their stares on me. "Who was that?" Miguel asked. "Someone from my mom's office." "And what did she say?" I swallowed. That my mom is on her lunch break. Nobody said anything, but I could see on their faces that they were all thinking the same thing. If my mom was at her office, having lunch, without her cell, then who had it? I don't understand what's happening, Alejandra whispered. Neither did I. I told them everything. That someone had answered my mom's phone. That she hadn't said anything until I demanded answers. That then she spoke with my voice. That she gave me an exact date and time. That later I called my mom, and her phone was off. This doesn't make sense, Miguel said. It can't be a coincidence, Laura whispered. No one had answers. Not even Daniel. He, who always found the logical way out, was silent. Finally, it was him who spoke. The most logical explanation is that someone entered your house. His voice sounded tense, forced. Maybe a thief. Or a thief, since you said the voice was female. That would explain why someone answered your mom's phone. And my voice. Because that wasn't just a female voice, it was my own voice, Daniel. I asked in a whisper. Daniel didn't answer. And the day and time? I continued, feeling panic rise in my throat. Is it the exact moment when I'm going to die? Silence. Daniel couldn't give me an answer. And that terrified me more than anything else. Laura looked at all of us, still with the tension hanging in the air. It was clear she was trying to stay calm, even though her eyes reflected the same uncertainty we all felt. Listen, she finally said. We can't keep speculating here and letting ourselves be carried away by panic. We need proof, something concrete. And how are we supposed to do that? Miguel asked, crossing his arms. We'll go to your house, Laura said, turning to me. If it really was a thief, we'll know immediately. If the door is forced, if things are messed up, if something's missing, that would confirm that someone entered, and that the call you received was simply from someone who found your mom's phone and answered it. And if we don't find anything, murmured Alejandra, without finishing the sentence. Laura sighed. If we don't find anything, we'll think of another explanation. But at least we'll rule one possibility out. I couldn't oppose it. Deep down, I needed to see it with my own eyes. Okay, I agreed. Let's go. No one complained. They all understood that, after what had happened, I couldn't go alone. I had committed the route to and from my friend's house to memory by the time I was 12. We went there as a family pretty much every weekend. It was about a 30-minute drive. Pretty damn far for a kid my age. I couldn't do much else in the car but look at the road ahead, because I got carsick if I looked at my phone for any longer than a few minutes. Thus, the route was forever burned into my mind. That summer, the summer I turned 12, we would visit that family a lot. We often joked that we practically lived at their house at that point, considering we ate half our dinners there. It was nice. My sibling and I got to play on their PlayStation, and my parents got to sit on the porch and have a couple beers with their friends. A win-win. We'd stay for a while too, sometimes all the way until midnight. We'd have so much fun that we'd lose track of time, only realizing when the youngest in the family started to fall asleep. We'd pack up our stuff and head off into the warm, humid summer night, lamenting the fact that we had to leave it all. The night it happened, it was raining. The car's digital clock flashed 11:14 as the car started up. I always loved riding in the car at night. It usually meant we were headed home from somewhere, which was always nice. I could get in bed, lie back, relax, and put all the day's events behind me as I drifted off to sleep. I just found it so calming. The lights of the highway would speckle the road ahead of us, and even though I knew it was just more cars, I always loved how it looked. Due to the light pollution, it was the closest I could get to a starry sky. I'd rest my head against the car window and watch the lights fly by. It was nice, and the sound of the rain made it even nicer. There was one stretch of road, though, that always grabbed my attention. It was right after the exit ramp we would use to get off the freeway. There was a park off to the left, a big, open field of grass surrounded by woods. An old, rusted swing set sat in the center, next to a filthy slide and some worn-down monkey bars. They weren't even over any wood chips, just more grass. It was incredibly unsafe. I wasn't sure why the town hadn't just torn it down already. During the daytime, this was just a normal, rundown playground in a big field. There was nothing special about it. Sometimes we'd see kids playing in the grass, or someone playing fetch with their dog. It was your average park. But at night, when the street lamps and moonlight were the only things illuminating it, the park transformed into something else. Shrouded in darkness, the field seemed to stretch on for miles, and the forest surrounding it was nothing more than a deep, black void. I was never that scared of the dark as a kid, but this park always unsettled me. I'd always look out the window and imagine seeing something there, something inhuman and terrifying. I'd see it, it'd see me, and then we'd drive past, and I'd never see it again. There was something so intoxicating about the idea. Something terrifying about it, too. This night was no different. As we took the exit ramp off the freeway, my mind's eye conjured up images of the park, populated by countless otherworldly denizens. A tall, lanky thing stood atop the monkey bars. A gigantic man bounded across the treetops, staring down at me from afar. A thing with a head bigger than the rest of its body dragged itself across the grass. The thought sent shivers down my spine. I was always a very imaginative child. That's why I still sometimes wonder if what I saw was even real to begin with. As the park came into view, the shapes of the playground blurred by the raindrops running down the side window, I saw something. A pale lump of something sprawled out across the grass. My eyes widened, and I pushed my face up against the glass. My worries about seeing something terrifying in the darkness gave way to curiosity in an instant. The closer our car got, the better I could make the figure out. Long limbs covered in thin white hairs. A long snout jutting out from its face. It was a dog. The poor thing was out all alone in the rain, shaking like a leaf. At least, I thought it was shaking. Hard to make out through the darkness. From the looks of it, it was a borzoi. If you haven't seen one before, look it up. They're goofy-looking dogs with long legs and even longer snouts. It's like they were built wrong, and this dog certainly fit the bill. But as our car got even closer, just about to the point where we were right up next to it, something started to feel off about the dog. I couldn't put my finger on why, but the way it was laying down didn't look natural. Not even for a dog that sick. Its paws weren't bent in the right places. Its spine didn't curve in the way that a dog's normally would. Just as we passed it by, it raised its head in an instant and turned to face us. It was as if a man's face was stretched over the skull of a dog. Human eyes stared dead ahead, the pupils nothing but pinpricks in a sea of pale blue. The nose, stretched beyond its breaking point, went down the length of the snout before terminating in two large, stretched-out nostrils. Its lips jutted out the front of the snout, cracked and bleeding, peeled back to show a mouth full of human teeth. Its tongue lolled out of its mouth, glistening with saliva in the fragments of moonlight that peeked out from the gaps in the clouds. The raindrops on the window distorted its face, twisting the already grotesque form into something truly indescribable. My heart stopped, and my blood ran cold. And then it got up. The borzoi man raised itself on unsteady legs, elbows and knees bent backwards. I could tell now why its paws looked wrong. They weren't paws at all, but human hands and feet, thin white hairs dusting its fingers and toes from the knuckles up to its long, yellowed nails. As we passed it by, its whole body twitched, and its limbs suddenly propelled itself forward. It galloped towards us on all fours. I couldn't scream, I couldn't cry, I could only watch as this thing chased after us, mouth wide open. We were faster, thank God, but it certainly tried its hardest to keep up. I turned my head as far as it could go, just barely able to see it through the back window out of the car. It was obscured by raindrops, a writhing, galloping mass of pale skin and thick white hairs slowly receding back into the darkness. It took me another minute before I could say anything, and as soon as I tried, I broke down in tears. I babbled incoherently. There was a dog, but he wasn't a dog, and he was chasing us, and he was all wrong, and he was hairy and sick, and his face was weird and his arms bent weird. It was nonsense. My parents found a sensible enough explanation for it. Some random dude, probably on drugs or something, chased after our car. And I was tired from a long night playing with my friends, so I was probably just seeing things. Most people probably would have resisted this explanation. It's hard to discount your own senses like that. Yet I was desperate for some way to discount what I saw. It took my family the whole car ride to convince me in my frantic state. But once I calmed down, I found myself agreeing with them. I was tired, and there was a pretty big drug problem in our neighborhood. So it made at least a little sense that I had some kind of mild hallucination that turned some druggie into a terrible monster. I had to believe it, because if what I'd seen was real, unsurprisingly, I had a lot of trouble getting to sleep when I got home that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see the borzoi man's face, skin tearing from the tension of being stretched across a body that wasn't built for it. I could smell its breath, hot and rancid. I could hear its labored breathing as it bounded towards us through the darkness. What if it followed us? What if it chased us, just barely out of our sight, all the way home? I kept replaying my parents' words of reassurance over and over in my head. You're tired. You're exhausted. You're seeing things. It was just a man. There's nothing to worry about. I tried my absolute hardest to fool myself into believing what they had told me. After an hour of deep breaths and frantic rationalization, I had done it. I'd tricked myself. Relief washed over me. Eventually, exhaustion took me over, and the gentle pitter-patter of raindrops on the roof lulled me to sleep. I had the most pleasant dream, though I can't remember what it was about. The dream didn't last. I awoke suddenly in the middle of the night to an unbearable stench. It's hard to describe, sickly sweet, a mix of mud and blood and perfume and rotten fruit. It's hard to identify a smell when you don't know the source, and I did not want to know where this was coming from. I would have just gone back to sleep, but it was too intense to ignore. Maybe it was an issue with our plumbing. Maybe I could wake up my mom and ask her what was going on. My eyes fluttered open and slowly adjusted to the darkness of my room. I always sleep on my left side, facing the window. Rain beat against the roof of the house. The storm had grown more intense since I fell asleep. I was about to get out of bed and make my way towards the door when I noticed something strange glinting in the darkness of the window. They were far too big to be raindrops stuck to the glass. I sat up and squinted. It wasn't until I noticed the fingers gripping the outer edges of the windowsill that I knew what I was looking at. The glint of its eyes. It stood, shrouded in darkness, right outside my window. Its body was soaked, masses of matted fur covering most of its face. Only its eyes remained completely uncovered. I could just barely make out its pupils moving, scanning the room. Could it not see me? Did it not know I was in here? It pressed its nose against the window and sniffed, as if it was trying to track my scent through the glass. I heard a sickening crunch as it pressed its nose further, mashing it into nothing more than a mangled mess of cartilage. Blood dripped down the glass. The window creaked. Another wave of that horrible smell washed over me. It was even stronger this time. I doubled over as soon as I smelled it, vomiting all over my quilt. I could hear it sniffing outside the window, or at least trying to sniff, as the blood pooling against its nose was snorted back down into its throat. It had caught wind of the scent of my vomit through the glass. It was clawing at the window now, long nails scraping crisscrossing patterns of little white lines, whining like a spoiled dog begging for table scraps the whole time. It wanted so badly to get through that window and do whatever it was trying to do to me. Probably eat me, maybe tear me apart too for good measure. I didn't know and I didn't care. This thing was trying to get me. I hid under the vomit-stained covers, tears streaming down my cheeks. Thinking back on it, I should have ran, booked it to my parents' room, and screamed as loud as I could. But I knew they wouldn't believe me. That man couldn't have tracked us down, no way. They'd say I was just imagining things. After all, how could it be standing outside my window when my room was on the second story? The scratching stopped after a minute or so, but I didn't dare look out the window to see if it had left. I couldn't bring myself to pull my head out from under the blankets. I was terrified that maybe, somehow, it had gotten into my room, that it had forced the window open and crawled into my room, and now it was standing over my bed, leering down at the shivering mass underneath the covers. I could almost feel the spit dripping from its tongue onto the covers. Maybe if I just stayed still it would go away. Back through the window, up the driveway, and away from my house. A loud thud reverberated through the room and startled me into pulling down the covers. Images of the thing staring me down from the other side of the window. All I saw when I looked, however, was a smear of blood. Not long after that I heard the second thud, and then the skittering of nails across pavement. I rushed to the window, nearly tripping over my own feet, and stared out at the driveway. Nothing. The Borzoi man must have retreated back up the driveway and down the street. I never told my parents about that encounter. That night I put my sheets in the wash, left the window open to air out the faint hints of that horrible stench that still permeated my room, and then just sat there on the floor crying. I'd just tell them the blood on the window was a bird that had hit it overnight. I didn't want to tell them what had happened. I just wanted this all to be over. I wanted to bury whatever this thing was deep into my memory, so deep that I'd never think about it ever again. It would have worked if not for a single disturbing fact, one that still makes my stomach churn thinking about it. For the rest of the time I lived at that house, my room smelled like wet dog, and I was the only one who could smell it. The black veins beneath Lily Morgan's skin pulsed as she scanned the tree line, her eyes completely dark from rim to rim. 3 years since her first change, and the sensation still felt strange, like someone had replaced her blood with ice water. The cold spread from her chest through her limbs as her vision shifted, the world taking on layers invisible to normal people. The perimeter of Lake Michigan Haven looked clear. No shimmering distortions that would signal entities hiding behind human faces. No black silhouettes of true spirits with their tethers stretching skyward. Lily blinked, allowing her vision to return to normal. The veins beneath her skin faded, and warmth crept back into her extremities. The daily headache would come soon, the price for borrowing sight that humans weren't meant to have. All clear? Maya asked, her breath visible in the chill morning air. They'd been best friends since before the world fell apart, and Maya was one of the few who didn't flinch when Lily's eyes went black. Looks that way. No sign of the migration yet. Lily tucked her hands into her coat pockets. Her fingers had turned blue again, another side effect of using her abilities. Maya nodded, making a note on her worn clipboard. 3 years after the entities began appearing, paper was still more reliable than any electronic device. That's consistent with the pattern. If they maintain speed, we've got 3 days, maybe 4. 3 days until thousands of those things are pushing at our doorstep. Lily gazed across the lake, its surface glittering in the dawn light. Hard to believe it's almost beautiful out here. Maya's smile didn't reach her eyes. I'll walk back with you. Commander wants everyone inside by full light. The Haven had once been a lakeside resort, its stone buildings and iron gates now reinforced with every protection they'd discovered against entities. Salt lines were refreshed daily. Doorways were framed with iron and silver. Sonic emitters played frequencies that disrupted entity forms. And most importantly, it had seers like Lily, who could spot what regular humans couldn't. They walked in comfortable silence, passing the garden plots where the early shift was already at work. Food had become precious in a world where supply chains had collapsed. Just another adjustment to life after the breach. Hey, Maya said suddenly. Remember when our biggest worry was that calc test junior year? Lily smiled despite herself. You mean the one you cried over for a week? I did not cry for a week. Maya shoved her playfully. 3 days tops. For a moment, they were just two 19-year-old girls again, not a seer and a strategist in humanity's desperate struggle for survival. But the moment passed as they approached the main building, where Commander Hawthorne would be waiting for Lily's report. I've got to check these numbers against yesterday's observations, Maya said, holding up her clipboard. Tell the commander I'll have updated projections by lunch. Lily nodded, watching her friend head toward the strategy room. Maya had found her place in this broken world, using her mind to predict entity movements. Lily had found hers too, though not by choice. The day her father had come back from the dead, pretending to be human, something inside her had changed. She'd seen his true form, and nothing had been the same since. Commander Eliza Hawthorne stood at the map table, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a severe bun. She didn't look up when Lily entered. Report, she said, voice clipped and efficient. Perimeter clear. No advanced scouts, no stragglers. Commander Hawthorne finally looked up, her sharp eyes studying Lily's face. You look pale. How much did you push yourself out there? I'm fine. Just the usual. Hawthorne's expression softened slightly. She'd never admit it, but Lily knew the commander worried about her seers. They were both weapons and people. Sometimes it was hard to remember which. Marcus wants to see you when we're done. Something about training. The commander turned back to her maps. Maya's projections? By lunch, Lily supplied. Hawthorne nodded. Good. That girl's got a knack for patterns. Sometimes I wonder if she's not developing abilities of her own. She's normal, Lily said quickly, perhaps too quickly. Just smart. Normal is a luxury these days. Hawthorne's voice had an edge of weariness. Dismissed. Get some rest if you can. Lily found Marcus in the training room, a converted hotel ballroom with mats covering the floor and strange symbols painted on the walls. At 45, he was one of the oldest living seers. Most burned out or went insane by 35. There she is, he called, his voice always slightly too loud, as if he was speaking to someone standing farther away. His eyes were permanently rimmed with black, the scara never fully returning to white. Heard you pulled perimeter duty again. Someone's got to do it. Lily shrugged. Marcus tossed her a bottle of water. Drink. Your lips are blue. Lily caught it and drank deeply, not realizing how thirsty she was until the water hit her throat. You're pushing too hard again, Marcus said. Using full sight for routine sweeps is like hunting rabbits with a flamethrower. I'd rather be sure. And I'd rather you didn't burn out before the real fight gets here. His voice softened. 3 days, Lily. We need you at full strength when they arrive. I know, she conceded. I keep expecting to see something. The patterns are different this time. They usually send scouts ahead. Maybe they're learning. Marcus sat on a bench, patting the space beside him. When Lily joined him, he asked, "Still having the dreams?" She looked away. "Sometimes. Your father?" "Mostly." Marcus nodded. "First kills stay with you, even when they're not really people." "He looked so much like him," Lily whispered. "Right up until the end. That's what they do." Marcus's voice held the weight of experience. "They find what hurts the most and use it against you. It's why so many people still believe they're really their loved ones coming back." Lily closed her eyes, seeing again the moment when she'd finally confronted the thing wearing her father's face. The way it had pleaded, using his voice, his mannerisms. The sickening sensation as her newly awakened abilities had revealed its true form. The noise it had made when she drove the iron knife into its chest. "Did I ever tell you about my brother?" Marcus asked, breaking into her thoughts. "He was the first one I saw through, 2 years before the big breach. No one believed me when I said something was wrong with him. They locked me up, diagnosed me with all sorts of things." Lily looked at him. He rarely talked about his past. By the time anyone realized I was right, it had already consumed 3 people. His face hardened. "So when the breach happened, I was ready. Some of us were meant to see, Lily. It's why we survived when others didn't." A shout from outside interrupted them. Marcus was on his feet instantly, moving with the unnatural quickness all experienced seers developed. Lily followed, her heart rate already accelerating, pushing the cold through her veins again as her vision began to shift. They burst outside to find a crowd gathering at the eastern perimeter. Lily pushed through, her status as a seer opening a path as people stepped aside. At the front, Maya stood with Commander Hawthorne, both staring at the tree line. "What is it?" Lily asked, her eyes already turning black. Maya pointed. "Look." At first, Lily saw nothing. Then, a figure emerged from between the trees. A woman, walking slowly toward the haven. There was something familiar in her gait, in the way her hands swung at her sides. "Entity," Marcus growled beside her, his own eyes black now. "Stand ready." Lily focused, allowing her sight to fully take over. The cold spread through her, vision sharpening as layers of reality became visible. She could see the protective barriers around the haven, glowing faintly. She could see the spark of life in every person around her. But when she looked at the approaching figure, something strange happened. Her vision blurred, as if she was trying to look through fog. She blinked, concentrating harder. The figure remained stubbornly indistinct, neither the shimmering distortion of an entity, nor the black silhouette of a true spirit. A blind spot in her perfect vision. The woman drew closer, and Lily's breath caught in her throat. Even without her sight, she recognized that face. The same face she'd run from 3 years ago when she fled her home. "Mom!" The word escaped as barely a whisper. The woman stopped just short of the perimeter. She lifted a hand in greeting, and called out in a voice that Lily felt in her bones. "Lily? Sweetie, is that you?" The exact inflection, the gentle questioning tone she'd used whenever Lily came home late. The voice that had called her to dinner 1,000 times. The voice that had read her bedtime stories. "Full entity," Marcus warned, stepping forward. "I see it clearly." But Lily couldn't see it. For the first time since her abilities manifested, she couldn't see what stood before her. Panic bloomed in her chest. "Lily," her mother's voice called again. "I've been looking for you for so long." "I never stopped looking." Commander Hawthorne's hand closed around Lily's arm. "Morgan? Talk to me." I can't see," Lily stammered. "It's like looking at static." "What do you mean you can't see?" Hawthorne's grip tightened. "Is it masking somehow?" Marcus moved in front of Lily protectively. "New entity type. Has to be." Lily stepped around him, drawn forward despite every warning bell in her mind. "Mom," she called, her voice breaking. The woman's face lit up with joy and relief. "Oh, Lily, you're alive. I knew you would be." "It knows your weaknesses," Marcus hissed. "Don't engage." But it was her mother's smile. Her mother's hands reaching toward her. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "Why did you leave me, Lily?" her mother asked, the joy in her expression melting into hurt. "I waited for you to come back." The words hit Lily like a physical blow. She staggered backward, memories flooding in. Her mother pale and drawn as the entity masquerading as her father fed on her. Lily fleeing in the night, too frightened to do anything else. The unbearable guilt that had haunted her ever since. "I'm sorry," Lily whispered, not sure who she was talking to. This thing that looked like her mother, or the real woman she'd abandoned years ago. "Lily, step back," Commander Hawthorne ordered. "That's not your mother." "I've had to do terrible things to survive," the woman said, ignoring Hawthorne. "But every moment, I was trying to get back to you." Lily felt her resolve weakening. She tried again to see, pushing her ability until blood vessels burst in her left eye, filling the black scara with red. Still nothing but fog where clarity should be. "Defensive positions," Hawthorne shouted to the guards. "Possible new entity type. Morgan, fall back now." The woman who might be her mother took another step forward, stopping just short of the perimeter barrier. "Please, Lily. I don't have much time." "They're coming." "Who's coming?" Lily asked, unable to help herself. Her mother's face twisted with fear. "The others. They can smell the living. Thousands of them. But I broke away. I remembered you. Remembered my Lily." "Don't listen," Marcus warned, pulling Lily back. "It's trying to get inside the barrier." "I know what they are now," her mother continued urgently. "I know what happened to your father. I know why you ran. You were right to run, Lily." The words Lily had desperately needed to hear for 3 years. "Fall back," Hawthorne repeated. "That's an order." Lily's vision suddenly swam, her knees buckling as nausea swept through her. She barely registered Marcus catching her before she hit the ground. Looking up at her mother's face, if it was her mother, she saw the woman mouth 3 words. "I forgive you." Then Lily's world went black. She woke in the medical ward, the antiseptic smell burning her nostrils. Maya sat beside her bed, head bent over her clipboard. "Hey!" Lily croaked, her throat raw. Maya's head snapped up, relief flooding her features. "You're awake. Thank God. How long was I out?" "About 4 hours." Maya helped her sit up, offering a cup of water. "You collapsed. Marcus said you pushed yourself too hard." Memories rushed back, her mother standing at the perimeter, the terrifying blind spot in her vision. Those final words, "I forgive you." "Where is she?" Lily demanded, trying to get out of bed. "The woman, my mother." Maya pushed her back gently but firmly. "Gone. Vanished back into the woods before anyone could question her." Marcus wanted to pursue, but Hawthorne wouldn't risk sending people beyond the perimeter. "I need to find her. What you need is rest." Maya's voice was uncharacteristically stern. "Marcus said your blood pressure crashed. Something about how your abilities interact with your circulatory system when you push too hard." Lily slumped back against the pillows. "I couldn't see her, Maya. For the first time ever, I couldn't tell what was real." Maya's expression softened. "I know. It's scary. What if?" Lily hesitated, voicing the fear that had been growing since she saw the woman. "What if I've been wrong about other things? What if some of them really are our loved ones coming back?" "Don't." Maya gripped her hand. "Don't go down that road. We know what the entities are. We've known for years. But I've never had a blind spot before, which means they're adapting, finding new ways to trick us." Maya squeezed her hand. "They're counting on you to doubt yourself. That's how they win." A knock at the door interrupted them. Commander Hawthorne entered, looking more tired than Lily had ever seen her. "Good, you're awake," she said briskly. "How are you feeling?" "Like I need to be out there," Lily replied. A ghost of a smile touched Hawthorne's lips. "Of course you do, but you're on mandatory recovery for at least 12 hours. "Commander, that's not negotiable, Morgan." Hawthorne cut her off. "Whatever happened out there nearly killed you. Marcus is examining the perimeter for any residual energy that might explain your blind spot." Lily looked away. "You think I'm compromised? I think you're one of our most valuable assets, and something targeted you specifically." Hawthorne's voice remained even. "Until we understand what, you're staying inside these walls." After the commander left, Maya stayed, working quietly on her projections while Lily stared at the ceiling. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her mother's face, heard those words, "I forgive you." Night fell, and Maya finally left to get some sleep. Lily feigned drowsiness until the night nurse finished her rounds, then slipped out of bed. Her legs felt wobbly, but determination kept her upright as she made her way to her quarters. She changed quickly into dark clothes, tucking an iron knife into her boot and strapping a silver band around her wrist. Basic protection against entities. She knew what she was about to do was reckless, possibly suicidal, but the need to know burned too fiercely to ignore. The Haven slept, its night watch focused outward. No one paid much attention to a shadow slipping through the hallways toward the rear exit. The one Maya had shown her years ago when they snuck out to watch meteor showers. The cool night air hit her face as she eased the door closed behind her. She paused, allowing her vision to shift partially. Not full sight, which would drain her too quickly, but enough to see any immediate threats. Nothing nearby, just the distant glow of the perimeter barriers and the silent woods beyond. Lily took a deep breath and began moving toward where she'd seen her mother, or whatever it was. Step by careful step, staying close to the shadows of buildings. A hand clamped onto her shoulder. Lily whirled, knife already half drawn, only to freeze at the sight of Marcus's disapproving face. "Going somewhere?" he asked, his voice dry as autumn leaves. "I need to know," Lily said simply. "And I need you alive," he countered. "Which you won't be if you go out there alone. You can't stop me." "Apparently not." Marcus sighed heavily. "So I guess I'm coming with you." Lily blinked in surprise. "What?" "You heard me." He pulled out his own knife, the blade gleaming dully in the moonlight. "I'm not letting you face this alone. Whatever it is." Relief and gratitude washed through her. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." His expression was grim. "This is probably going to get us both killed." He pointed toward the woods. "I've been watching. Your mother came back about an hour ago. She's waiting just beyond the first line of trees." Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. "Then let's not keep her waiting." They slipped past the perimeter barrier, using Marcus's security clearance to temporarily deactivate a small section. Beyond the haven's protection, the world felt different, wilder, more dangerous, charged with unseen energy. The trees loomed ahead, their shadows stretching like grasping hands across the ground. Lily felt the cold spreading through her veins as her sight activated more fully, the familiar dark veins appearing beneath her skin. "Stay close," Marcus murmured. "And if I tell you to run, you run. No questions." They entered the treeline, moving as quietly as possible over the leaf-strewn ground. Lily strained her senses, searching for any sign of her mother. A whisper of movement ahead made them both freeze. "Lily?" Her mother's voice, soft and uncertain. "Is that you?" Lily stepped forward despite Marcus's restraining hand. "I'm here." Her mother emerged from behind a large oak, looking exactly as she had earlier. In the moonlight, her face was pale and drawn, but her eyes lit up at the sight of Lily. "You came," she breathed. "I was afraid you wouldn't." Marcus moved to Lily's side, his eyes fully black as he studied the woman. "I see it clearly," he muttered. "Pure entity." But Lily still saw only fog where her sight should reveal truth. The blind spot persisted, leaving her feeling vulnerable and uncertain. "What are you?" she demanded, forcing steel into her voice. "Why can't I see you?" Her mother's expression crumpled. "Because I'm not one thing anymore, Lily. Neither fully alive nor dead. Neither fully myself nor what took me." She extended her hands, and in the moonlight, Lily could see they were covered in a web of dark veins, similar to what appeared on her own skin when using her abilities. "After you left, I fought it," her mother continued. "The thing pretending to be your father. I couldn't win, but I wouldn't let it take all of me either. So I fractured. Pieces of me went into the light. Pieces stayed here. And some pieces—" She shuddered. "Some pieces got tangled with it." "Impossible," Marcus growled. "Entities consume. They don't merge." "Unless they've evolved," Lily whispered, a terrible understanding dawning. "Unless they found a new way to survive." Her mother nodded sadly. "They learn. They adapt. And they're coming, Lily. Thousands of them. But different now. Stronger." She took a step closer, and Marcus tensed beside Lily. "I don't have much time," her mother said urgently. "They'll realize I've broken from the migration soon. I need to show you something. Something that might help you survive what's coming." "Don't trust her," Marcus warned. "This is exactly how they lure people out." But Lily couldn't tear her eyes away from her mother's face, the face she'd abandoned 3 years ago. The blind spot in her vision felt like a personal failure, a betrayal of her gift. "Show me," she said. Her mother smiled, relief washing over her features. "It's not far. Just up the hill, where your old school was." Marcus made a noise of protest, but Lily had already decided. "Lead the way." As they followed her mother deeper into the woods, Lily felt something shift in the air around them. A heaviness, like the moment before a storm breaks. She glanced at Marcus, who nodded slightly. He felt it too. The ruins of Lakeside High School appeared ahead, its broken walls eerily illuminated by moonlight. Once a place of normal teenage concerns, now a gutted monument to the world that was. "In here," her mother said, gesturing toward what had been the main entrance. Marcus grabbed Lily's arm. "This is a trap," he hissed. "She's leading us exactly where they want us." "I know," Lily replied quietly, "but I need to see this through." Her mother waited by the crumbling doorway, her expression unreadable in the shadows. "Hurry," she urged. "They're coming." As if summoned by her words, a distant wailing rose from the forest behind them. A sound Lily knew all too well. Entities on the hunt. "Inside," her mother insisted. "Now!" They rushed through the entrance, Marcus cursing under his breath. The interior was dark, but as they moved deeper into the building, Lily noticed a strange glow emanating from what had once been the gymnasium. Her mother pushed open the double doors, revealing a sight that stole Lily's breath. The gym was filled with true spirits, at least a dozen black silhouettes with tethers stretching upward through the collapsed roof. But these weren't like any spirits Lily had seen before. Their tethers were unusually thick, pulsing with energy. And as she looked closer, she realized with a shock that several of them resembled her at different ages. A child, a younger teen, a version of herself from just before the breach. But most disturbing of all were the walls. Every surface was covered in the same 3 words, written thousands of times in what looked like dried blood. "I forgive you." "What is this?" Lily whispered, horror rising in her throat. Her mother stood in the center of the room, arms outstretched as if in welcome. "This is where we learn the truth, Lily. This is where you see what you've been missing all along." The spirits turned toward them in unison, their featureless faces somehow fixing on Lily. The wailing outside grew louder, closer. "Lily," Marcus said, his voice tight with fear. "We need to leave. Now." But before they could move, the doors slammed shut behind them. Her mother's face split into a smile that stretched too wide, her eyes gleaming with a light that was not entirely human. "Don't you want to be forgiven, Lily?" she asked, her voice layering with something deeper, older. "Don't you want to be whole again?" The spirits began moving toward them, their tethers twisting together overhead to form a web of light. And Lily, trapped between the mother she'd abandoned and the shattered reflections of herself, felt the blind spot in her vision begin to grow, darkness closing in from all sides.